Here we go, another new video from me for you. Thank you for your interest in my previous videos. Again, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That would be great, thank you very much. This video is about an older Canon EF lens, the Canon EF 3.5 to 5.6 28 to 135mm IS USM. And this time I'm not testing it on a Sony camera, but on my new treasure, the Canon EOS R5. Have fun with my test report. This lens was introduced in February 1998, in the heyday of analog photography. Accordingly, it was developed and optimized for film photography and not for digital photography. However, Canon offers a lens profile for this lens, as does Adobe for Lightroom and Camera Raw. So that I can use this lens on my Canon R5 with its RF bayonet, I bought a Canon EF to RF mount adapter with filter drawer. I've owned countless EF lenses for decades and they seem to multiply by themselves. This adapter is just the thing. Now I always have a polarizing filter, an adjustable ND filter and other filters for all lenses with their different filter diameters with me. Of course, you can use this EF lens on all Canon EOS models with an EF bayonet without an adapter. It works with all functions, including the lens internal image stabilizer, on all EOS models ever built. I had read in some internet articles that the IS consumes too much power, so that the large battery pack would allegedly also be necessary for an EOS 3 or EOS 1N. I have been able to use this in numerous other Canon EF lenses with IS on the analog cameras shown here, as well as on the EOS R5 without any problems. I have never noticed any difference in the operation of the IS. This compatibility is unique and brilliant. The lens has a fast and accurate ultrasonic motor. The autofocus of this lens works excellently on the Canon RF bayonet. Adapting original Canon EF lenses to the RF bayonet does not lead to any loss of speed. Your lens behaves on the EOS R5 like on all other EOS models. This was actually to be expected, as there is no need to translate the commands between different systems, such as Canon EF lens to Sony A7 or 4 camera, for example, into the respective other manufacturer's system. Nevertheless, I was pleasantly surprised at first. It was probably because I had been using Canon EF lenses adapted to Sony E-mount cameras for years. This usually works well to very well, but certainly not as smoothly as with EF lenses on the RF mount. If you need to focus manually, the slide switch on the lens must be switched from AF to the M position. Manual focusing is precise, even if the path from infinity to 1.5 M is quite fast. It takes only about a third of a turn to move it from infinity to the closest focus distance. You can switch off the image stabilization, IS, with the help of another switch. But there is no real reason for this. You can also leave IS switched on when shooting from a tripod. I couldn't see any negative influence on the images. This adapter offers plug-in filters. Here you can see a polarizing filter that can be adjusted with a small wheel on the filter. Great! A filter for all EF lenses. The Canon EW78C or an alternative product from a third-party manufacturer is used as the lens hood. The filter diameter for the use of screw-in filters is 72 mm. I always use a UV or clear glass filter to protect the front lens in addition to the filters in the filter adapter. This saved my 2.8200mm USM L and other front lenses a few years ago. If you want to use the lens on an analog Canon EOS with infrared film, the 28 to 135 displays infrared indices for different focal lengths to correct the distance setting. Before I share my experiences with the optical quality with you, here are a few key data. It consists of 16 elements in 12 groups. One element is molded from aspherical glass. It has only 6 primitive aperture blades, so that the aperture is always a hexagon when stopped down. It can be stopped down in a range from 22 to 36, depending on the focal length. The filter thread is made of plastic. It does not rotate when focusing or zooming, but moves inwards and outwards when zooming. The close focusing distance is 0.5 meter from the marked image plane. The diameter of the lens is 78.4 mm, the length 96.8 mm with a weight of 540 grams without filter and lens hood. It becomes longer at longer focal lengths. A 28 to 135 mm standard zoom covers a wide range of applications in photography, making it a good solution when only one lens should or can be used. With a weight of less than 550 grams, it is also not too heavy. Here you can see the changed angle of view when photographing from the same point of view with focal lengths from 28 to 135 mm. First, I would like to show you the distortion and vignetting of the lens. Here you can see unprocessed RAW files. You can see clearly pronounced distortion in dark image corners at a focal length of 28 mm. The uncorrected vignetting is surprisingly high. Is it due to the camera's sensor? I saw reports on the internet that did not mention this effect at a focal length of 28 mm on the Canon EOS R5. Had I put the lens hood on incorrectly? Cell phone pictures, in which I can be seen while taking the test photos, show a correctly attached lens hood. Here is an example in which vignetting no longer plays a role after applying the lens profile. Even at 70 mm the distortion is clearly visible. The vignetting is not very pronounced. To summarize, my recommendation is to always use the lens profile. Despite the lens hood, the lens is very susceptible to stray light when the sun is directly in the picture. This is certainly due to its complex optical construction for the time. Its sensitivity to stray light must certainly be taken into account in one or two pictures. However, the sharpness performance is also very high in the center of the image in backlight. This shot was taken with a focal length of 135 mm and an aperture of 5.6. A good performance here. In general, the 28 to 135 mm delivers a very good sharpness performance in the center of the image at all focal lengths and aperture values up to 11. As expected, the lens achieves maximum performance slightly stopped down. Aperture 8 for the range up to about 70 mm, then I would recommend aperture 8 to 11. Due to the diffraction blur, a deterioration of the image can already be seen from aperture 13 and the image becomes softer. The resolution of the lens is not capable of serving the sensor of the EOS R5 right into the image corners. The image corners remain another weak point of the lens. At 28 mm and open aperture, color fringes can be seen at the high contrast transitions. These disappear from aperture 5.6. The center of the image is already sufficiently sharp from an open aperture, but stopping down significantly improves the sharpness performance. The image corners are significantly worse. At 28 mm I recommend at least aperture 5.6. At no setting, however, are the image corners crisp and sharp. Here is an example taken with a focal length of 53 mm and an aperture of 5.6. You can see a very good sharpness in the center of the image. Perhaps the lens could generally show a little more contrast. Let's see what image processing can do for the lens, but I'll show you that at the end of the video. At f8 and 15 mm the imaging performance looks very good. I have already mentioned the outermost image corners several times. Here is an example taken with a focal length of 100 at 8. Post-processing, also because of the reduced contrast due to the warm weather, will bring out even more in this subject. (135mm at aperture 8). One of my favorite focal lengths. I would like to have the Canon RF 1.8 135mm LIS. My dear EF 2.0 135mm, don't listen now. At 135 an open aperture, as well as at 8, the image appears low in contrast. The sharpness could also be better. At 90 to 100mm, on the other hand, the imaging performance at close range looks much better and you can get crisp images here. If you need this focal length range, I can recommend this lens. If the photographer can deal with the weaknesses of this lens and put some time into image processing, the results will be impressive. Especially if a large zoom range is required. If only one lens is to be used, then I recommend this zoom. Otherwise, for example, the combination of the Canon EF 4.0, 24 to 70 L, IS, with a 4.0, 70 to 200mm L, or LIS would be preferable to this one lens if you have the money available. You can certainly save a lot of money by buying secondhand, an option I make use of very often. Thank you for your interest. Please give me a like, stay healthy and take a look at the edited pictures that were taken with the lens presented here. See you in 14 days, Stefan.